Hello and welcome to Abilities United Presents Community Connections, a program dedicated to those individuals living with a developmental or physical challenge. I'm Andrea Throndson, Community Connections Developer. Tonight we have a very exciting program. Our theme is Bridging Communities with East Palo Alto. We have several very interesting guests and 2 field shoots that will show you what we do out in the community. With me now is Mr. Ruben Abrica. Mr. Abrica was the mayor of East Palo Alto last year in 2009. He currently sits on the City Council of East Palo Alto. Welcome, Mr. Abrica.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's such a delight to have you here. For the viewers, let's just talk a little bit about East Palo Alto. Can you give me a little bit of background, where it's located, what type of community you have?
Yes, I'd be glad to do that. I like to think of our city as a small city by the bay. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're next to Menlo Park and Palo Alto. We're part of the Mid-Peninsula region. We're in San Mateo County. We're a fairly young city. In fact, we'll be turning 27 years only.
That's very young.
27 years, yes. You know, very young. On the other hand, I think we're a very diverse community, so our people, you know, whether at this point is predominantly Latinos, large percentage of African Americans, also Pacific Islanders, European Americans, Asians, a little bit of everybody. Mm-hmm. And so I also like to think of our city, although it's a young city, but is one that brings the experience and the wisdom and traditions of all kinds of people to the area.
That's when I used to have participants that were over in East Palo Alto. One of the things that always caught my attention was you could go there and you would see everyone. You know, it's such a mixture of communities, right in a small area.
Yeah, we're part of the New California. We've been trying to do our part since we incorporated, I would say, or, you know, since the 60s, our community has been very diverse. Mm-hmm. And, you know, more and more cities in California, or definitely in California, are experiencing that, and I think is giving us some challenges, but I think it's also prepared us in some ways, and definitely our younger people, I think has helped them in that respect.
So what has been the history of, you know, when you talk about East Palo Alto and you talk about Palo Alto, you kind of always feel like there's a divide. What has been the history of the 2 communities kind of coming together? Has it been distant or has it been united? Well,
you know, again, we share a name, you know, Palo Alto, East Palo Alto and Palo Alto. So in some ways I like to think of them as the 2 sides of the American coin. You know, if we understand Palo Alto, understand East Palo Alto, I think we get a good view of the country. And although there may be times when some conflict occurs, or, you know, people may see us as totally different communities, but the reality is that we have a lot of interaction between our communities. You know, there's people who visit, who volunteer, who work on both sides, where our young people, some of them go to school in the surrounding communities. So I think it's probably a mixed history, but I think it's always important to emphasize the benefits that come out of people getting to know each other, people helping each other and learning from each other, you know, as neighbors. And certainly at the government level, we try to do that as much as we can. But every day, I think people do that, and that's a good thing.
Well, that was one of the goals of our, you know, when I came in as Community Connections Developer, one of the goals was to get our participants out into the community and have them really experience, you know, all sides, all walks of life. What's the role that volunteers have played in your community?
Well, we really couldn't do without volunteers. I think, you know, there's many organizations in our community, community groups, nonprofits, a lot of churches, and all those organizations, sports groups, you know, cultural groups, the vast majority of them really rely on volunteers, both from within the community or, you know, from wherever in the area and the region that people have a particular interest to volunteer, schools, you know, all of those. So And you know, these days, I think, especially with the economy being so, you know, such a challenge, and you know, just the more pain, more problems, more suffering, that I think volunteers are in particular provide a good reminder that if we, you know, if we work together, help each other, then we can all benefit. People can learn new skills when they volunteer. They get to know people. They become ambassadors in a certain way to, you know, deal with some of the negatives that sometimes happen when things go down. And
right. Well, and that's what, you know, as our group, and we served, you know, some of our individuals have different challenges, but we have seen that in East Palo Alto, where we volunteer, that you have been extremely welcoming to volunteers of all levels. You know, that everybody, you know, everybody's valuable and everybody has something to give. What would you like to see in the future for our volunteers in East Palo Alto?
Well, first I want to say I'm glad to hear that, and so that makes me proud of our people in East Palo Alto, and that's what we try to do, that, you know, welcome everybody. And, you know, I think you were saying earlier you have some volunteers in your organization who also live in East Palo Alto.
Right,
and
right.
So I think that's the idea that, you know, in the Mid-Peninsula and in our communities here, particularly Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, that the more we do them, the more we tell people about volunteering. I think that it will create stronger bonds. And, you know, I really want to thank your organization for doing that. And, you know, not giving up, because sometimes people may give up. You know, someone may have a negative experience anywhere and say, oh, you know, we're not going to work in that community anymore. But I'm glad to hear that you're actively looking for ways to connect people, and you know, that's very important.
Well, we have found nothing but open arms for our volunteer projects, and it's been neat for our group to experience East Palo Alto, because we don't really have any stereotypes. We go in, we do our work, we see how important it is to volunteer, and, you know, that's a really important thing to do. And it's nice to see the communities interacting with each other.
And that's the best way to break down stereotypes. When people get to know each other as individual human beings, you know, because unfortunately we do have to live with, you know, stereotypes that get created, that get reinforced sometimes. Unfortunately, sometimes even by the media. Right. You know, they pick up on something and push it. So that's another very valuable thing, that every time a volunteer interacts with people in another community, I think they will carry with them that the experience of meeting another person, another human being, who may be different in some ways, of course. You know, what's different about that? We're all different.
Right.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different, right.
But through that process of working together, helping each other, I think something good comes out. Right. I also would say, really, one thing I always also mention to young people even is that we need to keep passing that on, so everybody can help everybody.
Right, and word of mouth
and
spreads
word of mouth
the word
spreads,
that it's a really good place to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Like I said, it's a beautiful city by the bay, next to the beautiful city of Palo Alto and Menlo Park, and
it's a great experience to have. While we're talking about that, let's go ahead and see one of our videos. We've put together a video of some of our work that we do at Collective Roots Garden over in East Palo Alto. So let's have a look.